Hi, thank you for joining us today. My name is Don Ferber. I'm actually the state chair of the Sierra Club, but I'm coming to you today because we want to talk about the status of energy in Wisconsin, and where we've been and where we're going to here. Um, and one of the things but today I'm really speaking to you as a Beyond Coal volunteer, in terms of this topic. But I want to put this a little bit into context with current events and what's going on, and that's that we're really saddened by a lot of the other events going on in our country, not only the response to the pandemic, but obviously the recent racism of incidents and killing of Black people, which is atrocious. Um, but one of the things we're trying to do and have tried to do with our Beyond Coal campaign is to understand that there are systemic elements here going on that are directly impacting, especially people who are already disadvantaged in communities of color in this country. And we need to resolve that too. We need a lot of systemic change, of which one is our energy system. We do know climate change is coming, and that is already disproportionately impacting people who are lower income, less well off, closer to coal plants, closer to chemical plants, and all sorts of other facilities. And so we need to do something about our whole system of energy and who's being impacted and how that's being dealt with. So part of today is to talk about some of the background and where we're going to in Wisconsin, but I wanted to put that larger context out there. And within the Wisconsin context, and a little bit beyond that too, in terms of where we've been, I want to point out that coal was a cheap form of energy for quite a while, but now it has become a lot more expensive, especially compared with uh, frack gas, which has dropped prices starting, especially consistently since about 2009, and now the dropping prices of clean energy, which are actually in most cases now cheaper than coal. Uh, in terms of coal, too, the economic downturn that started in 2007, the recession we had back then, which is reduction in energy use, definitely played a role in the downturn in coal. Um, the growing concerns over climate change, which I mentioned. Um, Back in up until recently, we had a public service commission in Wisconsin that was either all or primarily appointed by former Governor Walker, who was very conservative, denied climate change, and was very supportive of the utilities and being on coal. And that, as of recently, has changed to where Governor Evers now has two appointments on the Public Service Commission. And so we hope that will lead to a more proactive future in terms of clean energy. And another factor, too, is that investors are starting to withdraw from their investments in terms of fossil fuels. So I think we're moving towards more concerns over that. And certainly the money backing for fossil fuels is a major issue that affects where we're going here. I'm located in Madison here, and we are actually one of the very earliest sites in the country in terms of the Beyond Coal movement, which started in about 2001, 2002. And that started with the UW Charter Street coal plant. And actually, two of our initial environmental heroes here in Wisconsin, Bruce Nilles, who was then with the Beyond Coal campaign and lawyer, and Dave Bender, who was one of our lawyers, who now works for Earth Justice, but whose wife is a lawyer for the Sierra Club and the Beyond Coal campaign. So that was really this. It started in Chicago, but we began the Charter Street fight here as a power plant, coal-based power plant, primarily used for heating, that was located on the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus. And there were violations of the clean air rules, and they weren't even applying for new permits. We challenged them on that, and they refused to even negotiate about this. They said, we're fine the way we are. We don't really need to do anything about this. Well, we challenged them on that. And at the same time, we worked to educate the community in what was going on. This was a downtown power plant, which had coal dust piles sitting right there, which were impacting people in the neighborhood. So we did a lot of education in the community, but it was finally the legal action that won out for us, where in 2007, a Reagan appointed judge, a conservative judge, ruled against the uh, Charter Street saying they had to do an environmental impact statement, and the agreement was to get off coal and they would switch to gas and biofuels. But it also included a review of 12 hours other state-owned coal power plants around the state, but one was the Capital Heating and Power Plant, and that switched to frac gas in 2010. The Charter Street plant also switched, but it turned out only to be to frac gas because under Walker, he decided not to use biofuels in one of the reactors at that point. So that was our first initial big fight here in Madison. In 2005, Madison Gas and Electric, our local utility, they have a downtown power plant in Madison that was on coal, the Blount Street plant. In 2005, they had hearings and they got a lot of pushback from the community, and they agreed to take that off coal by 2011. Well, they ended up doing that in 2010, switching that to frac gas also. But that was also influenced too by that the Blount Street plant was uneconomical on coal, and hence it wasn't running very fully anyhow a lot of the time. So those are a couple of the big battles we had here in Madison, but the key thing is that Madison Gas Electric is our local utility. They're very tied to our community. Their moniker is our community, your community energy company, and they're one of the smallest investor-owned utilities in the country, which means they're also more susceptible to community pressure. And so whereas the coal campaign had done some work before, they reinvigorated their work then at one point because they realized maybe there's a chance to go not just after individual coal plants like the Beyond Coal campaign had done previously, but after particular utilities. And Madison Gas Electric, they are part owners of the Columbia Coal Power Plant in Portage and the newer Elm Road Generating Plant that you'll hear more about that's in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. And at one time, Madison Gas Electric in the early 2000s was a leader in renewable energy, but they've fallen far behind now. And one very unfortunate thing is they led the way in the nation with proposals in 2014 for regressive fixed fee rate hikes, the fees you pay before you use any energy, to where it would have gone from on your electric bill for a residential user from about $9 a month in 2015 to over $68 a month in 2017. And there was a lot of pushback on that from the Sierra Club, Clean Wisconsin, Renew Wisconsin, and so on. And finally, through some negotiations and a lot of pushback from the community, MG&E withdrew the proposals for the previous following years and decided to just have an increase, which was still substantial, in 2015 to $19 a month fixed fee on the electricity. Now, I do want to mention one aspect of that is it really hurt low energy users the most. A lot of the low energy users are low income minority communities. So this is a systemic aspect of really our somewhat of racism in our country in terms of how our fees are structured, but it often isn't recognized. But it also led to Madison Gas Electric hiring a firm that did some community energy conversations, to the growth of a local organization called Repower Madison that pushed back. But unfortunately, the result of this, where MG&E sort of gamed the process, was that there was really little change in their relationship in the community. So because of all that, as I mentioned, Beyond Coal saw an opportunity to push back on the utilities here. Another aspect of what's been going on more recently is that Madison, Middleton, and Monona have all had plans to get to 100% renewable energy. And Dane County, the county which Madison Gas Electric is located in, has been a leader on solar for some time and now has released a climate action plan for 100% renewable energy. This is all putting a lot more pressure on MG&E, along with all the petitions and other work we've done through the Sierra Club, pointing out how they're lacking and where they're going. Their current goal for Madison Gas Electric is 30% renewable by 2030, which lags far behind a number of other utilities in the Midwest. They have also been working more with communities and business to install more solar, and they are in the process of putting in a lot more utility scale solar. So I think they can actually achieve their 30%, well prior to 2030, but it's going to take a lot more pressure for them to really amp up their goals because they've been very conservative. They have a goal of net zero carbon by 2050, but they still have not declared they're going to get off coal because net zero does not mean carbon free in terms of electricity production. So the takeaways, I think, from all this, is that MG&E, which was one time his leader, has really been a follower, following along with other utilities are doing in the state and beyond. An unfortunate aspect of what they do while they're supposed to serve their customers and they are serving the public interest is they really care more about their finances and their shareholders than they do about the customers. And so out of this, I mentioned that MG&E is a part owner of Columbia Coal Power Plant, which is primarily owned by Alliant Energy, along with the Wisconsin Public Service. So we are especially putting pressure on Alliant Energy as well to shut down the Columbia Coal Plant, at which point I think Madison Gas Electric might well go along with that too. So that's some of the general background as to what's been going on in the Madison area, but there's been a lot of activity in southeast Wisconsin as well. That's been a major part of our Beyond Coal fight. And for that, we'll let Tom Rutkowski talk to you about that.
Hi, so I'm currently the chair of the Southeast Gateway Group of the Sierra Club. That includes Kenosha, Racine, and Walworth County. I've also been with this Clean Power Coalition since its beginning, and that organization consists of 25 social justice, environmental, and religious groups that's been formed for one purpose, and that is to urge We Energy to retire their coal plants in Oak Creek. So I got my start really in the environmental movement when talk of expanding that existing plant of South Oak Creek began in 2002 or 2003. And unfortunately, there were a lot of people that were advocating for gas at the time, but unfortunately we have the largest, I think the last coal plant built in Wisconsin. And so that's been our effort. In addition to that, I've also been involved in organizing a group buy for solar here in Racine and Kenosha and Walworth counties. And I should say that I'm a retired English teacher, so I won't get lost and talk about inverters and panel efficiency. But just to give you some idea of what we've been doing here, renewable energy in Wisconsin went up 34% last year in 2019. And I think especially for Kenosha and Racine, a good part of that growth was due to group buys. And I'm interested to see how the phase out of the federal tax credit is going to affect not only group buy programs, but installations and residences and businesses. So in 2020, we're down to 26% from 30% last year. Next year, it'll be 21%, and it'll be going down to 10% after that. So, that's significant. Also, we'll be, economically facing some difficult times. So I'm not sure what effect all that will have. But 2019 was the fourth year in a row for records for group buys. All in all, in Wisconsin, there were 310 signed contracts, 1,983 kilowatts. And here in southeastern Wisconsin, the Southeastern Wisconsin Solar Group Buy and Grow Milwaukee altogether did about 68 contracts and 391 kilowatts total. And for the whole state, the Focus had 768 installations, so that gives you some idea of the proportion in southeastern Wisconsin. And at this point, we have yet to have our own installation firm in Racine and Kenosha. I think that would be a great thing for this area, a great boon for jobs and everything. And when you look at maps of large scale installations, utility scale installations and so on for solar, you don't really see much in southeastern Wisconsin. And that is due to change, hopefully in the next year or two, and I'll get to that in a minute. So when you talk about energy of any kind, you have to talk about We Energies because they are the big dogs around here. And just in terms of their current mix in 2019, We Energies had 7% renewables, whereas Alliant and Excel had 21%. So We Energy's really lags behind. And Don mentioned, regressive fixed fees and so on. Well, just last year, We Energies tried for a second time to impose a solar tax, which would have amounted to like 30% of the energy panels make. And they did take that back. I would like to think it was the work of the Wisconsin Solar Coalition and the Sierra Club and the CPC and a lot of other great groups, but it had a lot to do with probably how hypocritical they would look by offering a Solar Now program. So they have this thing called Solar Now, and that's basically the rent a roof, although it seems that they're going in a lot of empty fields rather than rooftops. So basically, We Energies will own the panels, they'll get the credit, and they will pay a rental fee for that rooftop or for that field where these would be located. So there are some groups in Kenosha and Racine and Milwaukee that are taking advantage of this program. UW Parkside is going to have a 2.25 megawatt installation. And for, if you don't know what that means, that's roughly enough to power 400 homes. And that's the largest size for the Solar Now program that's permitted by the Public Service Commission. Another similar installation in New Berlin. And then there was just another one announced, another 2.25 megawatt project just by the Milwaukee Airport, 8,000 panels. Parkside will get up to $84,000 a year. The Mitchell Airport one will pay off $100,000. I'm not sure why one gets paid more than the other, but they might work that out. And then, to talk about renewable energy in Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee wanted to install 1 megawatt of solar on city buildings. They had a third-party contractor that was going to own them and claim the credits, and We Energies refused to connect them. So that led to Milwaukee downsizing their project from 1 megawatt to a much smaller installation. And it also led one of the aldermen to say, I'd freeze in hell before I did a deal with We Energies. But ultimately, they are going to work with We Energies for the Solar Now program. Racine also has a proposed Solar Now program in a park, 600 kilowatts. So that's kind of what's taking up a lot of cities' attention as far as renewable. There was a couple of years ago a large rooftop installation, commercial installation at the IKEA plant, which was at the time, I think, the largest rooftop installation in the state. And the big news in Kenosha, in Paris Township, Invergy has proposed a 200 megawatt solar farm. It would be 750,000 solar panels, 1,400 acres, and it would be enough for powering 55,000 homes, which is significantly bigger than any of those. And a first would include 50 megawatts of storage, one of the largest in the country and the first in Wisconsin to have that kind of storage capacity. And they are awaiting approval, which would take like a year or 18 months. And I know a lot of people in Paris and in Kenosha have wondered, they've wondered what's going to happen when this thing is decommissioned, who will be responsible for, removing those panels, restoring the farmland. And, people aren't familiar with this, but they approached me and said, well, we've heard that there are all kinds of toxic things in those solar panels. And I said, well, send me your source. And they did. And it was, it's proof that you can find anything on the internet that you're looking for. And this was an article written by some, pro-nuclear scientist and talking about all these metals and so on that would leach into the ground. But I did manage to steer them to a different resource. and assured them that that would be okay. So those are the things happening in southeastern Wisconsin in terms of renewable energy. As far as the Clean Power Coalition, we look to Alliant and MG&E with envy, thinking that we wish we had a power company that was at least as responsive and responsible as yours. But we seem to be the ones with the most stubborn, and the ones who made the wrong choice in 2002, and now we're all kind of stuck with it. But we're doing our best to get them to retire the South Oak Creek plant for now, which is running at a $75 million a year loss, and even the newer one is now losing money. So we're hoping that they will follow the lead of Alliant and get with the program. So that's Southeast Wisconsin.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It's very unfortunate that that last power plant got built. Sierra Club and others tried to stop it, and unfortunately, they kind of wrangled their way through it, which we're paying the price for now, and especially the folks in Southeast Wisconsin. But as you pointed out, there's really a lot of new solar going in the state on an individual basis. There's all sorts of plants that various utilities have, but Alliant Energy alone is putting in the 1,000 megawatts of solar, and there are gigawatts of solar literally planned with major solar farms around the state already going in now. And just to complete some of that good news, this will be the first year ever since we've relied on coal in the United States that renewable energy is on track to outpace our coal use. Coal use has been dropping every year by several percent. I can't remember for sure, but I think it's even going to be under 20% for our country this year. So, there's all that. But I mean, certainly we've got our main centers or battles here in Wisconsin are in Southeast Wisconsin and in Madison. We have teams in all cases you can get involved with. Certainly contact Tom there, or in Madison, they can contact me, or Cassandra.steiner@sierraclub.org is the lead for our coal works here. We will shortly have a petition out about asking Alliant Energy, that I think we'll be having online, to close down the Columbia Coal Power Plant. We're working on that right now. And also people can get involved in their local communities and work on clean energy. The Sierra Club put out, along with two other organizations, put out this clean energy toolkit for local communities. And that's where a lot of action is happening in this country and in our state, is at the local level. I mean, we'll be working on the state level too, but in your own communities, just like in Madison and elsewhere, they've got passed resolutions, they've putting together sustainability plans. And we're here to help for people that want help in their communities to talk what's happening, because it's also happening in La Crosse and Eau Claire and other places where they're looking at this. And I know obviously in Southeast Wisconsin, they'd much rather have that than the coal power plants. And there is the opportunity, the economics are in our favor. We know we need to do about climate change, just like we got this pandemic now. What we're going to face from climate change is going to be an ongoing thing that can cause even worse problems that we can't resolve as readily. So we really think this is an opportunity for people to get involved, to get on board with this, and provide some equity in this. I mean, there's a lot of money that needs to be invested in renewable energy. It should be in producing energy efficiency in low-income housing, especially where we're looking at doing that. It should be jobs where all these jobs are local, where people in their communities can get trained in these things. So there's opportunities everywhere to help with this, and we hope you'll join us and help with this effort. Thank you.